Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to introduce you to the BCDC 2 2022 documents this afternoon. These documents have been endorsed by the following associations: ACEC, the Association of Consulting Engineers; AIBC, the Architectural Institute of BC; BCCA, the BC Construction Association, and they were worked on with the participation of the Ministry of Citizen Services of the provincial government. Before we do that, I want to introduce you to the team. On the BCDC team this year, we have Terry Brown, who's the president of STBR Consulting. Neil Cummings is the engineer and president of Celeritas Consultants Limited and representing ACEC. Del de Medeiros, who's a director of the Real Property Division, Ministry of Citizen Services. Katie Fairley, Principal of Fairley Strategies and Industry Standard Practice Consultant of the BC Construction Association, and Katie represents the BCCA. Sherry Han, Architect with the Redevelopment and Major Projects at Fraser Health Authority, and Sherry is also representing AIBC. Phil Long, who is President of Phil Long Construction Services Limited. Myself, Chris Monroe of CM2 Ventures. Bronwyn Phillips, Senior Procurement Contract Specialist with the Real Property Division, Ministry of Citizen Services. Warren Perks, who is a VP Industry Standard Practices at the BC Construction Association, who has since retired. And finally, Vicki Topping, an architect and partner with MQN Architects. We are proceeding with this information session on the basis that you will access the BC Construction Documents website and download the guide and documents to review. These documents have been uploaded as of June 1st and are now available for your access. Just to clarify expectations, we will not be going into detail on the specifics of the document, but only outlining the changes between the old BCDC2, CCDC2, and the new documents. This session is for sophisticated users of stipulated price agreements. If you need further information on how the documents work, please seek out a knowledgeable person to assist you. A PDF or PowerPoint show of the slides will be made available after the last education session has been presented. This slide deck will be available on the BC Construction Documents website. If you wish to attend another of these education sessions after you have reviewed the documents, please re-register using the same form for another date. The Canadian Construction Documents Committee, CCDC, updates their suite of industry standard documents periodically. CCDC 2 2020 was released in December 2020, replacing CCDC 2 2008. The 2008 version of CCDC 2 will be phased out and no longer available after June 30th, 2022, the end of this month. This means the copyright seals for CCDC 2 2008 will not be available after June 30th. Entities may still use CCDC 2 2008, providing they have stocked up on copyright seals. However, we encourage you to move forward with the new CCDC 2 2020. We have allowed for a 2-hour session today, and here's an overview of what we're going to cover. The background and history of BCDC, CCDC 2 changes from 2008 to 2020, the bid form, particularly the appendices, key considerations and documents, supplementary conditions, substantial performance of the work and ready for takeover, the resources that are available, a walkthrough of the actual documents that are online, and finally a question and answer session. The presentation will take approximately 45 minutes, so we have about 1 hour to address any questions you might have. Please enter your questions in the chat, or if we are unable to respond to your particular question, we encourage you to use the form at the bottom of the BC Construction Documents website to ask your question. In using the form, we would appreciate it if you might preface your question by identifying whether you are an owner, consultant, contractor, or other with identification. Feel free to leave comments on this session in the forum as well. We all need feedback. If we find there are numerous questions applicable to a particular sector, we may schedule additional Q&As for that particular sector. So on to the background and history of BCDC. When CCDC released their 2008 version of their stipulated price agreement, there was a recognition that owners were looking to minimize their risks and not have to develop supplementary conditions every time they went to market. In addition, similar to today, each owner was developing their own supplementary conditions to the document, and as the stipulated price contract was the primary delivery method, this was very confusing and onerous to the marketplace. Also, the front-end documents that many owners were using to procure construction did not meet the requirements of the construction process used to bid. The vision behind the BCDC was to develop a simplified document with a balanced perspective that owners could rely on to minimize their contract risks in a project. BCDC 2 was formed to develop a balanced set of supplementary conditions and to provide a standardized suite of bid documents for owners to use. The BCDC documents layer over top of CCDC 2. They do not replace CCDC 2, but they are used in conjunction with it. The KISS principle was used in development of BCDC 2, and a guide explaining various parts and clauses was developed to be used in conjunction with the documents. BCDC 2 was updated in 2016 with minor changes. And BCDC 2 has developed into the de facto standard document for stipulated sum bidding for the public sector in BC. The committee operates by consensus, and each individual on the committee is responsible and respected for their voice in negotiation of each clause in the document. We wish to make it very clear that BCDC 2 2022 is copyrighted and cannot be cut and pasted or modified for use in any other document. Public sectors, please take note. Entities cannot cut and paste without infringing on the copyright and moral rights of BCDC 2. We also ask that you respect the level of effort that the BCDC has put into developing these documents. This committee of 8 to 10 people has volunteered their time outside of their day jobs for 2 hours a week since May 14th, 2021, over 1 full year. These documents are supported and endorsed as issued by the respected associations involved in construction, ACEC, AIBC, BCCA, and supported by the province and a supply chain specialist. Since the pandemic hit and remote work has become a norm, we have noticed that many entities are receiving construction bids by email. This has become a major concern for the integrity of the bidding process. Note that submissions should be either a paper submission or via an online bidding platform. There are many platforms available for use as software as a service. Trust is an important component of competitive bidding. Any perception that might allow manipulation or early release of information prior to closing will erode this trust. If bids are sent to a specific person's email account, there may be no backup if that specific person is not there or available. We reference Guideline 1.1, Advertisements to Bids, Section 001113 of the guide, Item 1.4 and 1.5, Releasing Bid Information. We encourage the use of public bid openings to preserve the transparency of the competition. This can be accomplished by using a Teams or Zoom online meeting where the bids are opened individually, similar to an in-person public opening. Specifically, the owner or their representative opens in front of the camera each bid and reads aloud as unverified bid results with the name of the contractor and the submitted prices. Bid amendments and modifications can be submitted by email. And why? Well, you can't seal an amendment, but you can seal, meaning not opened until after the closing time, the original bid. The owners or their representative also reviews any bid amendments at the same time as opening the original bid and reads out the add delete amount and final price after amendments, stating which we calculate as. Bid amendments may be submitted in various forms as identified in the bid documents. However, if the contractor is concerned with manipulation, the submission in a JPEG or PNG format is safer. As noted previously, CCDC 2 2020 was released in December of 2020 and introduces some major concept changes to the contract. CCDC 2 2020 has been developed with an editable suite of documents that owners can use and modify to suit their particular project requirements, which now includes Division 00 and 01. If entities are sophisticated enough to use CCDC 2 2020 and find it is better suited to their needs, we certainly support doing so. However, many entities are only involved in construction procurement on an intermittent basis. The BCDC 2 committee reviewed the new CCDC 2 2020 documents and felt that it would be beneficial to owners to have a less complicated document. BCDC 2 2022 simplifies the current CCDC 2 2020 to the familiarity used in previous BCDC 2 2008 versions. The BCDC 2 2022 document can be used as an off-the-shelf document that balances the risks and allows entities limited customizations through project-specific amendments where required. Also incorporated in the single document is the ability to use paper bid submissions or electronic platform submissions, allowing the entities to choose their own adventure. I now want to move into the major changes in the new CCDC 2 2020 document. The following 4 slides indicate the various general conditions that previously were in CCDC 2 2008, Division 00, the front end for those procurement folks, that have now been moved into Division 01, which are conditions administering the specifications. I will leave each slide up for about 10 seconds to allow for a quick review, but keep in mind these slides will be available on the website at a later date for a more detailed review. These documents following are used with the permission of CCDC for our education sessions. BCDC 2 2022 has also incorporated some changes identified here to simplify and combine the previous BCDC 2 paper submissions and the BCDC 2E electronic submission documents. Note Part 1.1 of Division 001113, Part 1.5.5, unofficial bid results will be disclosed promptly to all bidders. Such disclosure will not imply that the bids received are compliant or that a contract will be awarded to the lowest or any bidder. Unofficial bid results are a respectful and best practice to provide transparency to the bidding process. A common complaint heard is that CCDC documents cost money. A committee member has noted that using these documents and paying for the seals is akin to paying for the privilege of not paying for a lawyer. The new CCDC 2 2020 now also includes a Word document of Division 01 that entities can use for their projects. There are various options in some of the Division 01 sections for entities to choose the appropriate clause. The new BCDC 2 2022 has developed and provides recommended minimal supplementary conditions to the new CCDC 2 2020 Division 01. The new BCDC 2 has big edit or fillable field boxes for owners to add more specific information related to their project. A run through of the actual documents will be done at the end of this presentation before the question and answer section. An example that we've included includes site tour information. Entities might consider who should or can attend. Is it just the prime contractor and major subcontractors? Is it bidders and suppliers? Is attendance mandatory or not? Whatever conditions are intended, they must be noted in the bid documents. If someone comes late or misses a site tour, are they still able to bid? A 2010 legal case, Admiral Roofing versus the Board of Education of School District 57, may provide some insight. Mandatory versus optional site tours. Mandatory site meetings may be required by an owner due to the site constraints, as an example, institutional requirements, correctional facility, or secure facilities, or hospitals. This section will provide a quick overview of the bid forms contained in BCDC 2 2022. The owner may exercise this as an optional requirement for the bid submission. Note that if a contractor is listing own forces, they must be qualified to do the work, and the own forces must be prepared to do the work specified. The owner is to list a maximum of 5 major trades. Why? Most often there is a last-minute gong show going on to get the bid submitted. Having to list numerous sub-trades adds time and complexity to bid completion prior to closing time. Sorry. We acknowledge that this is a contentious topic in the general contractor sub-trades world. If an owner is concerned about limiting their listing to 5 sub-trades or wants to include more than 5 sub-trades, they should make use of BOBS, which is the Bid Central online bidding for subcontractors, where the sub-trades bid to the general contractor in a similar manner to how the general contractor bids to the owner. Owners are reminded that they cannot reject bids based on listed sub-trades. If an owner's wish is to evaluate trades, there are other procurement models such as pre-qualification to do so. When reviewing the setup of alternate prices, owners need to ensure that they are being transparent and fair. It is critical for owners and consultants to ask, how would the marketplace understand the process we have set out for using alternate prices? And to do this prior to releasing the documents. We refer to best practices referred in the guide, section 1.3 bid form supplement appendix B, alternate prices, where it says the owner identifies the priority of selection of the alternate prices to ensure transparency and fairness. Remember, the owner may accept any of the alternatives and corresponding alternative prices in any order or combination, including all or none. Alternatives and alternate prices are open for acceptance for the same period of time as the bid price. Itemized prices are due after closing time and not taken into account in awarding the bid. They are for information only. Bids cannot be rejected for itemized prices, as CCDC 2 is a stipulated sum contract. One single bid price is used for award. Itemized prices are often used by owners to validate against budgets or PQS reports. Unit prices are a price breakdown of the stipulated sum price in the bid. Refer to the guide, bid form supplement, unit prices, Appendix D. Unit prices are intended for adjustment to the quantities after contract award and as specified in the contract documents. Unit prices are provided for the units of work listed in the appendix, and the unit prices listed apply to performing the units of work only during the contract time. If the BCDC 2 2022 submission of a stipulated price is based solely on the unit prices, refer to guide item bid form unit price Appendix C, which advises an estimate of the quantities is typically provided to the bidders, noted in the bid documents, and the low bidder is determined through an extension of the unit price and those quantities. Cash allowances, I refer to the guide, the bid form supplements, list of cash allowances, Appendix E. This form assumes the owner will provide a form identifying each item of work for which a cash allowance is required and the amount of the allowance. Contractors are not expected to include cash allowances that are not identified on the form. Owners are responsible for and must ensure that all cash allowances from all subtrade divisions are included in Appendix E of the bid form to avoid confusion. So owners should discuss this with their consultants right at the beginning of the project. Key considerations. CCDC recognizes other contract security, and owners may wish to review those sections and, if necessary, include and add by project-specific amendments. Bonds should be used. The bonds should be CCDC approved by using the bid bond, the performance and labor materials bond, and they're all CCDC 220, 221, 222. E-bonds are required for electronic bidding on an electronic platform, and these must be specifically noted in the bid documents. BCDC instructions to bidders, section 12.E, notes that digitally verified bid bonds are required. In reviewing the previous BCDC 2 2008 document, the following were considered. If the topic is covered in bid language or contract language, it is not duplicated in the best practices document guideline. Best practices which have been included in this revised document, and it has been updated to reflect current laws. We also reference the Bid Central online bidding for subcontractor, or BOBS, as best practices in industry procurement. I want to emphasize that we have embedded imperative language such as must and will into the bid forms and appendices, and the imperative language means mandatory. Mandatory language written in the imperative, such as must or will, applies equally to both owners and bidders. Here's a look at the BCDC supplementary conditions. Just a note to those public sector organizations that fall under the province's risk management branch for indemnification and insurance, the specific requirements of the sector to be included in the project-specific amendments for indemnifications and insurance is the same as you did previously with the old documents. These are the key areas of change in the new BCDC supplementary conditions. By way of example, the following slides show the committee's working documents with the previous BCDC 2 supplementary conditions, and noted in green any new supplementary conditions added to the BCDC 2 2022. The green are in the minority. I will leave each slide up for about 10 seconds for a quick review. This section now includes the markups for change directive that were not previously in BCDC 2008. Note that all markups are now included in Division 00 and do not need to appear in Division 01. The key and major mind-warping change in the new CCDC documents is a new stage called Ready for Takeover. Previously, the documents referred to substantial performance or substantial completion as being 1, the builder's lien calculation, and 2, suited for the intended purpose. These two concepts have now been completely disconnected from each other in the CCDC 2020 documents. Substantial performance of the work now exclusively relates to the calculation under the Builder's Lien Act to determine if substantial performance of the work is evidenced, leading to lien countdown timeframes. At this stage, it is the consultant who now draws up the list and costs of incomplete or non-conforming work. Consultants may take into account the single face cost of incomplete or non-conforming work to calculate whether substantial performance of the work is evidenced. The lien holdbacks are 10% of the amount held back from each progress draw in the event the owner needs to pay out liens filed against the property where the project is underway. The triggering event of the date of substantial performance of the work provides subtrades and suppliers 45 days to file liens against the property. If no liens are filed, the owner is required to pay the general contractor the full amount of the lien holdback on the 56th day after the certificate of substantial performance of the work is issued. As noted previously, the old 2008 language of substantial performance of the work was meeting the Builder's Lien Act calculations and being fit for intended purpose. The new documents, which disconnect the two processes, is a major change and needs to be clearly understood. Substantial performance of the work and ready for takeover may or may not occur at the same point in time. Ready for takeover is now the most important date in the contract. Ready for takeover, for example, appears in a search of the new CCDC 2020 documents 48 times, while substantial performance of the work appears 17 times. At the time of substantial performance of the work, it is understood that work is still in progress. The substantial performance of the work is strictly a mathematical evaluation of the work completed to that point in time. No different than saying that drywall is 30% done or electrical is 70% complete. If I say my drywall is 30% done, the intent is to evaluate at that point in time as to the completeness of the work. The only time a deficient should be relevant to the owner is at ready for takeover. Up until that time, the care, custody, and control of the improvement is still in the hands of the contractor, and they will continue to reduce the work needing correction or completion as they work towards ready for takeover. We are challenging you to let go of substantial performance of the work. On a contractual and performance basis, it means very little. We encourage you to embrace ready for takeover. This is the definition of substantial performance of the work contained in the CCDC 2020 documents. We still have a substantial performance of the work, but only for and applicable to the Builder's Lien Act. Note that in General Condition 5.4.1, we have reduced the time frame to respond from 20 to 10 days. Again, note that in substantial performance of the work, it is the consultant who draws up the list of incomplete or non-conforming work to calculate the Builder's Lien Act 321 calculation. I need to highlight that the change that the owner does not have a deficiency holdback at the substantial performance of the work stage. This deficiency holdback is only created and comes into play at ready for takeover. We encourage you again to embrace ready for takeover and to let go of substantial performance of the work. This is now the defining moment in the contract. There are 8 prerequisites to ready for takeover noted in General Condition 12.1.1. Keep in mind that contractually, takeover can occur prior to this milestone, providing all agree, as referenced in General Condition 12.2.5. Just a reminder that this deficiency holdback is 2 times the amount of deficiencies. Note that the deficient and incomplete non-conforming work should not need to wait until the end of the project. This work should be reviewed and addressed continuously throughout the project. Seasonal work may be deferred as in General Condition 5.6 and split out if necessary. The second major area of note in the new document is that under CCDC 2 2020, all warranties commence at ready for takeover. This is a contractual requirement. Owners and consultants will need to focus on identifying particular warranties that previously commenced at substantial performance of the work. It is very likely that manufacturers and distributors may not have updated warranties that align with ready for takeover. Examples may include products, especially from the USA, roofing, boiler manufacturer warranties that may be different as they have not caught up to ready for takeover. Owners or consultants may wish to use the checklists included in the resource section of BCDC 2 2022 in final prepping their documents prior to releasing the bid documents to the marketplace. We have included requests for ready for takeover and final payment checklists. Included in the BCDC 2 2022 guide are a number of resources that may provide assistance. We particularly encourage you to use the search function to provide easy access to specific areas of the documents in both BCDC 2 2022 and CCDC 2 2020. We also encourage you to create a shortcut on your desktop for the BCDC 2 2022 guide. Included in the BCDC 2 2022 guide are a number of resources that may provide assistance. Examples include what's on the screen and others. I'm going to turn it over to Katie Fairley now for this section, and Katie's going to share her screen and do a walkthrough of the actual new BCDC 2 documents on the website. Let me just... There, I can stop sharing.
All right. So now I'm going to walk you through the new primarily Division 00 front end bid document, and I'll share my screen here. And I hope everyone can see that. If anybody comments on it, I'll ask Chris and Leslie. But I just got a thumbs up from Chris, so that's great. I first want to thank the BCCA marketing team as well as Faux Creative out of Victoria, who spent many long hours creating what I think is a very user-friendly document that I hope for the owners or the bidding authorities in the room who will be filling out the blue PDF fillable form will enjoy and appreciate. One thing that we've realized actually just a couple of hours ago, that the functionality of this document certainly works best in Adobe Acrobat. There's software platforms out there like Bluebeam, where some of this functionality is going to be lost. So we strongly encourage that it's opened and used in Adobe Acrobat. So like Chris mentioned, these documents are built off of CCDC documents. You may notice, well, you will notice that there are some additional clauses that have changed from the 2008 2016 version of BCDC, and there's a lot more fillable fields. Some of the language has changed, and that's because after we reviewed the CCDC Division 00, we felt that we could incorporate those into our document to make it more specific to each invitation. So and also just finally, each of these clauses and the language used was very much specifically discussed, sometimes for hours, by the committee. So I would say, if you're wondering why something is the way it is, certainly you can reach out to the contact information on the website, but know that there was a lot of discussion through all of this. So right off the bat, as Chris explained, the BCDC documents are now combined from the 2 and the 2E into one document. So we hope that this provides enhanced usability, both for the bidding contractor community and also for the owners and bidding authorities. Where are you going to get the specific clauses that are unique to a paper bid or to an online bidding system? Well, I'll show those to you, but it's basically clauses 8 through 12 are a choose your own adventure, and this document actually will help you with that by crossing out the clauses that are not relevant. So I'll walk through that in a little bit. Further, unlike what you experienced in the 2016 and 2008 version of BCDC documents, these documents are not locked. There is a copyright, as Chris explained, so just be aware of that. But knowing that there are many websites out there that can help anyone unlock a PDF document, that this felt like an unnecessary step, and so they are opened. Further, why don't you just delete certain pages? I will cover that as we go through, but that was something that was discussed heavily. And before I launch right into it, the blue fillable fields are meant for the owners or the bidding authorities to fill out. Where the bidder is to write it in, it is just a line blank, and they are to fill that out using, well, they can handwrite it or they could use a typewriter tool. So I won't go through every item, but you will notice that there is a linking between the different fields. So I will just first show you project name. I'll come up with something better in the future, but you'll see that that will auto-populate across the entire document where the project name is to be inserted. So you should only have, well, you will only have to do it once, and then that's set. Same thing for the owner's name. As you can see up here, it auto-populates and it goes right through the document, including where we get into the bid forms, etc. So there is also, apologies, I don't, mine loves to do that. Show you that on another page. There are these handy reset buttons down at the bottom of applicable pages. And there's also a full reset button. Now that reset all will reset every field in the document. So as you can see, it just wiped it clean from up here and also over here. So like I said, the biggest change in terms of the functionality of this document is kind of combining them in together, the 2 and the 2E, or now we have E and P. So if your intent is to have an online bidding system closing, you would strike out the one that you don't need, which is the physical or paper submission option, and you would insert here the web address of the bidding system. So for these purposes, I don't need to do that. But this is the one area where it will show up. Now, I think this is neat. I'm hoping that that all of you as users will agree. When you scroll into this section here, and like I said, 8P to 12P is specific to paper bid submissions, it's automatically crossed out. And same thing when you get into the bid forms, which for you, those of you who've used BCDC documents in the past, there are not many changes to them. All of those are also struck out. Now, if for some reason, I can't imagine why you need to reset it, there is that option. I'll watch this one. Yeah, you'll be able to unlock or undelete options. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, why not delete the pages, such as these bid forms if you don't need them for an online bid submission? We heard that comment from a couple of owners, and we referred it to the BC Construction Association Standard Practices Committee. So we figured that the contractors, as the people who need to review and bid on these projects, what did they think? And the feedback from them was that, no, these are standard documents. They want to know what's included or not included. So by deleting the document, you muddy the water as to the usability and the requirements of the owner. So, and the feedback was, we have no problem if it's crossed out. And similarly, the feedback from the owner was, well, we want to make it easy to cross out what we don't need. And this enables that. I will go back up to show you, and I'll click that reset button again. And like I said, it's removed, all of the PDF fillable fields. So I'm going to do a physical address location. You enter it in here. And similarly, the online bidding system submission clauses, so again, 8E to 12E, are automatically crossed off. So, and again, if for some reason you want to do it manually, you still have that option. So we try not to lock anything down. Now with this, you'll see here that there are a number of appendices that the owner can choose to require. And Chris did a great job walking through all of those. So it is this area where an owner would select the appendices that are required. So the ones you don't need get crossed off. And similarly, when you get to the bid documents, they are automatically crossed off there as well. So it's very clear to the bidders, I don't need this one. But as you saw, I left the cash allowance in there. So I think, we do think that there's a lot of kind of fun functionality in here. I will say, we did do testing on it, but by no means is this going to be perfect. I think we already anticipate needing to issue a revision document, so stay tuned for those. This was a significant change and shift, so it's not going to be perfect, but we do want your feedback. Does something need to be, does a field need to be bigger? Is it too restrictive? Would you like more options? I'd certainly encourage any feedback, and that can be sent through the BC Construction Documents website. Similarly, I've already flown past it. I'll just briefly touch on some of the functionality here about pre-bid site visits. So here again, you strike out the one that you don't need. So now you're saying that there's going to be a pre-bid site visit, and then you can choose which one you don't want. So now it's an optional site visit. I'm going to try to reset this and show the opposite impact. So again, if you say that there is not going to be a site visit, all of that gets struck out. And again, I won't go through each, each PDF fillable blue field, but there are a number of them. So it's important to go through, read the document, understand the document, and complete those aspects of the work. So that is the PDF fillable forms. I'll touch on this one, which is the schedule on the bid price, or the bid form for the stipulated price if there's a physical paper submission. In this case, you select the one that you want, and the other two options get crossed out automatically. So this is how, is the contractor stating when ready for takeover will achieve, or is it going to be the owner dictating how many weeks? And that same functionality exists over here on the bid modification form. The owner selects how a bid amendment, bid modification will be made. We'll take it by fax, and it will cross out the non-applicable options. So that's the front end document, the Division 00, ITT form. Other elements include what should be part 1.2 of the supplementary conditions. It's not like we haven't looked at this for the last year, but there you are. So that will also be a change. And these are the 6 pages of the supplementary conditions that that Chris went through. And now we get to part 1.3, which is the project specific amendments. This, when you download it from the website, this is included in the PDF package, but there is also an option to download a Word document to enable you to put in your amendments to the Division 00 or the amendments to the supplementary conditions as well. So that's available, and you can also click this and it will take you to the form to download. So like I said, there's a lot of really neat functionality. The last page is the part 1.4. That's the Division 01 general requirements. And those are the recommended modifications from BCDC for an owner when they are modifying or creating their Division 01. And that can be removed prior to issuing these documents in an ITT, but we left it in here just because of how important we feel these changes are. So the last couple items to note is the owner or the bidding authority will want to print this to PDF prior to putting it into the bid documents. I think it goes without saying that you don't want to have the bidders in there filling out their own PDF fillable fields. So you'll want to make sure that that's printed to PDF. And again, I would say as you start using these documents and start reviewing them, please absolutely send us feedback. I think we're really excited about the functionality, but this is our first time creating documents like this. So we're, very much looking for feedback from users. So with that, Chris, I will hand it back over to you.
Thanks very much, Katie, for that really good show. So just to emphasize, if you're using an electronic bid platform, go through these documents and strike out what you don't need, and then use it as a template to design your own bid form in your electronic platform that the bidders have to input their information to. We're hoping it streamlines that and provides an effective guide that's efficient in developing bid forms for online platforms. We're quite excited about it, and we hope to get some great feedback from you.